You're listening to Patch Bay on TYM KRS.
Welcome to Patch Bay, conversational podcast all about audio equipment, music, audio engineering, recording, live sound, and all sorts of other stuff, as we proved last week and every week before.
It's a bit ADD on occasion, on most occasions.
All the
What was I
time.
saying? All right. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah,
Good.
cool. Good,
Yeah.
good.
We
I'm
had
having-
the most epic nachos earlier.
Epic nachos, homemade epic nachos, or
Yeah, with all like the
uh,
fresh fixins and cilantro and guac and
ooh,
everything.
that sounds good. When Jen makes them, what she does is she does it in layers. So she'll put nachos and cheese, and then bake that for a minute or two, and then put another layer of nachos on top, and cheese, so that it's like a 15-20 minute process. I did them once on the barbecue, actually.
So
when
how
we
many
were-
hours does it take to get there? Just give me enough warning.
Yeah, it's I don't know, about 9 hours or whatever. Give her.
9 hours. That's worth it for some really good layered nachos.
So I know Addie was saying last show that she wasn't so good with the spicy, but Jen usually puts those not habanero peppers, banana peppers and stuff like that on.
Mm.
They're dangerous. But guac we don't usually do guac, so if you bring the guac and we'll make the nachos. Anyway, all right, cool. So you were talking about, you had a complete possible not telling me what we're talking about. Topic.
Yeah. Shane was
What?
like, "What are we going to talk about, man?" And I'm like, "I got some." Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm excited.
I didn't bother telling him what it was or anything like that because we're professionals.
We are,
Yeah.
sort of. Yeah.
So,
All right. Shoot.
I haven't been talking about this too much outside of just little bits and pieces in our IRC channel. And all you listeners are welcome to join us in there. It's if you do the whole IRC thing, it's on Afternet. We're in pound TYMKRS. And we're all in there all the time chatting about, doing this kind of thing. So
All kinds of nerdy stuff.
if it interests you, listeners, feel free to drop in. And yeah, so we were talking to Alex a couple weeks ago, I guess. And he had a cool DIY project he was working on. And 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Studio Rewire, which is pretty much a DIY project of epic proportions.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that I'm sort of working on a project on the side that is indeed audio related. I just haven't really started talking about it on any of our shows yet. So I thought because it's an audio project, Patch Bay
I'm excited.
would be the place where I'd break it.
Cool.
So, as Shane knows, and I'm sure many listeners out there, I tend to dabble in building sort of DIY synthesizers, musical instruments, all that sort of thing. And every time I do any project like this, the response is always the same. Can I buy one? And it's like, okay, yeah. If I wanted to have a factory in my house and I wanted to hire a bunch of people to assemble them, and no, you can't buy one. So this guy we know, what's his name? Emil, started this company out in Portland called Tindy, and it's basically Etsy for DIY people, right?
Oh, this sounds cool.
Yeah. So
This sounds like a giant time waster for Shane at work. Cool.
yeah,
I'm excited.
It also hurts your pocketbook because
Okay, how do
you
you
know,
spell it?
TINDIE.com, I believe.
Oh my god, so excited. Okay, anyway.
So basically, it's at this point thousands, I think. It may still be in the hundreds. It's fairly new of DIY electronics and nerd sort of projects, and funding of projects too, kind of like Kickstarter, only without having the middlemen involved.
Mm-hmm.
More like direct to the person kind of deal. So it's pretty cool. It's just come together in the last few months or so. We interviewed him on one of our other shows, Zombie Tech, several months ago. So if you want to hear more details about it, that would probably be a good episode to check out. I don't know, maybe Shane will track down a direct link to that episode of Zombie Tech for show notes.
Sure.
But so anyway, in our IRC channel, there's several people who design circuits for hobbies or a living, whatever, and they've been slowly moving their online stores onto this platform. And I figure I talk to these guys every day, and they're mostly, slackers, and I like them as people, but I could do what they're doing, so I figured there's no reason not to.
Right.
But I've been trying to think of the things that I do, what would be most applicable to me not having to build 10,000 of them myself. One, because I don't have the time.
Right.
And two, what would people really get a kick out of? And by people, I mean listeners and viewers of the shows that we do, because those are the only people that really count, right? You guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And the thing that I get so many like comments, requests, whatever on is the synthesizer stuff, like the proto synth that I built and the SID cog organ that I built, stuff like that. It's impractical to build them in quantity because it would cost so much money. You couldn't build a proto synth and bring it to market. It would just be ridiculously expensive.
Cost prohibitive. Yeah.
And the SID cog organ's even worse, because the first thing you'd need is a 1940 Hammond S model organ to take apart. And yeah, they're not making those anymore, so you can't source the parts.
Not easy to find.
So I'm teasing you guys, but basically what I was figuring out here is that what makes these things expensive is the input device, right? The keyboard, the case, that stuff. That's what makes it really expensive. The electronic side of it isn't expensive, especially because I know a guy that makes PCBs. He has his own PCB fab service, and I know other people that can do assembly of the circuit boards and stuff like that. So that stuff is pretty easy for me to take care of, but I can't sell something that involves a bunch of woodworking. So I was thinking about it, and I was like, okay, I've got this cool little thing that I like to use a lot called SID cog, and it's an emulation of the sound chip that was in the Commodore 64 computer back from 1982 or whatever. And some of you guys out there, have heard of chiptunes, and with this whole, commercialization of electronic dance music, you hear the sounds from 8-bit video games like the NES, Commodore 64, and all those. You're hearing those sounds in popular music now. So I have the ability to emulate these things and do crazy stuff with them and make really cool noises and sounds and stuff. And not from just if you go online and you look at noise boxes or circuit benders or whatever, these guys are doing some interesting stuff, but musically they're only so valuable because basically it sounds like crap at the end of the day, right?
Right.
A lot of it. Now I'm approaching it from more of a musician, perspective, so I know how to, focus on making it do things that are actually useful.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're making. Some of those guys are making extremely cool bleeps that aren't in key, but it's still a cool bleep nonetheless. But yeah, I get what you're saying for sure. Okay,
so I can do the 8-bit drum sounds, which we've talked about in the past, the bleeps and bloops, and cool, funky square wave bass instruments. All these classic. Take the best parts out of all of these 80s technology sorts of things and make sure that they go down in frequency to the point where they're useful for producing today's brand new music, because we actually have lower frequencies now. Yay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and we can reproduce said lower frequencies as well.
Yeah. Which is nice. I'm glad we have that. So oh, look at that, Emil just went offline on Skype. I was talking about you, buddy. I didn't realize he was on there. I should have called him, brought him into the show. Let him answer questions about Tindy. He's the
Yeah,
guy
exactly.
He's the guy to ask.
We should have him on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually fairly
If
an
you
exciting
guys
thing.
out there want to find more out about it, I can ask him if he wants to hop on, and we can totally talk to him. It should probably wait until we can do the whole double color thing.
Yeah, I would be interested. It's like I haven't obviously
It's a
seen
really
the site.
cool website,
Yeah.
and it's not all completely like electronics hacker stuff. There's a lot of stuff that's just like gadget stuff too. So, go check it out. If you like it, you like it, whatever. I like it. I've got a lot of friends that sell stuff on there, so it's something I like to make sure people know about. And so anyway, getting back to the actual topic here. So I have the ability to make all those sounds, but building a keyboard for it is the expensive part. So what I've been doing in my spare time here, because I have so very much of it, is figuring out how to create my own MIDI interface, like electrical MIDI interface, so I can hook up any standard MIDI keyboard, sequencer, computer with MIDI out, whatever you want to control your MIDI synth with, it should function fine with all of them. So I've been figuring out how to do that so that I can have just a little box with a MIDI port on it. Plug in your MIDI cable, plug it in your keyboard, and it's got 1/4-inch outs for plugging into an amp, guitar amp, the inputs on your console mixer, your outboard gear, whatever you want to do, because I'm approaching this from a musician / producer studio guy point of view, and I know what it's useful for.
Yeah,
hook it up to a
box.
computer with a Ableton or whatever controlling it, and run it through some outboard gear to get the exact sound that you want out of it, and sequence it in the DAW, push record, and record what comes back.
So what do we have a name for Project Kick-Ass MIDI box?
I'm not going to say the name yet because I haven't.
Okay. Oh, fair
I
enough.
haven't reserved the domains and all that sort of stuff yet, so I'm not going to say what it's called yet. But yeah, it's coming along nicely. This past week and a half, 2 weeks, I've been working on the display for it, right? Because you need to have some sort of way. I suppose you wouldn't need to, because you could control it over MIDI completely. But I figure some people will want to use it for live performance too. So I did want to have display capability so that you could change the presets and patches and all that right on it. So basically it has one knob, and the knob turns left, right, or you can push down and turn it left or right.
Okay, cool.
And that pretty much allows you to get into everything that you'd ever want to change in it. And I'm basically going to have like a simple menu mode that it comes in as default, and you can basically set up how you want it to sound, but it'll be pretty easy to go in there and change one thing to go into hardcore uber nerd mode, and have complete control over doing all sorts of things like setting it up to act as a sequencer, or having it automatically do arpeggios, or gliss, or all this higher cool stuff that we like to be able to do.
Yeah, it's sort of stuck. So it's basically going to be like a MIDI IO box / synth module /
think of it as a keyboard without, like a
keyboard,
old school synthesizer, just without the keyboard. You can hook whatever controler you want up to it.
That's freaking genius. Absolutely genius. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty simple idea. And now here's a cute little thing for the display. Instead of doing like a 2-line LCD display, the old like what you'd see on a radio or something like that, where it's got the matrix LCD display.
I have those on my CD burners at work. That's exactly what they are. It's that simple LCD backlit screen kind of thing. But yeah, with like two buttons.
To keep it less expensive, I really wanted to focus on coming up with a fun way to do the display. And what I came up with was using the 7-segment displays, like what you'd see in old alarm clocks, right?
Right.
And
right.
using 2 banks of 4 digits. And then, because this is sort of retro, right, 1982 SID chip sound, you might remember back in the day with calculators, if you typed in certain numbers and flipped the calculator upside down, you could spell stuff.
And it was hilarious.
Yeah, totally awesome, right?
Hilarious, and I still do it when I'm doing quotes for people. So if you get a quote for $8,008, I may not have been completely paying attention to my calculator. Anyway, okay, no, I'm loving this so far. Anyway,
so because it's not a calculator and you're not just limited to numbers, I can turn on whichever lights I want in each one of the digits. I'm basically able to spell out all the stuff like, ARP or whatever with
surf. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, it's very very cool that way. It's got that weird sort of hackish vibe because the letters are done on this weird little hacker type display. And the whole thing's got that sort of feel to it. And I'm sure you've got some questions, so I'll let you go.
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts, and actually a slight detour as well. But so I was thinking, depending on, obviously, like you haven't gotten into like the size of the box or anything like that, right?
Yeah,
like that
it's going to be pretty small.
Yeah.
The one that I'm going to do initially is a kit. So basically, they'll be getting a PCB board and the parts to solder it up. And I'd like to do one that is a kit and the box that it goes into. And the size on it is not going to be very large. It's going to be as small as I can get it. Think deck of cards, but a little bit taller.
Like Nintendo cartridge size?
Not quite that big.
Okay.
More like Super Nintendo cartridge size.
There we go. Yeah, I was actually sort of thinking, once you started talking about the 80s retro coolness and stuff, I was thinking if there's any way we can make this thing look like a little Commodore 64, that would be cool. Besides that fact, I really love that LED display. Or not LED, but the clock kind of idea. It was sort of popping into my brain the idea of, and this is a topic for another time, which we have to remember to bring up, but every engineer writes down the names of tracks differently, I find, when I've gotten sessions from guys. And when you were talking about like how to, like, that you would name each patch or whatever, it was just sort of reminding me, like, if you did you said it was what, 4 digits?
Yeah, well, you got 2 sets of 4, right?
2 sets of 4, okay.
So when you're navigating menus, one of them basically says what menu setting you're on, and the other one is what it's set to, right?
Right,
so if you're changing a value from 1 to, or 0 from 0 to 127, you get the numbers on one side, you get the fact that you're changing the attack on the other side. Yeah. So it's pretty simple that way, but if I arrange them so that they're next to each other, I actually do have 8 characters across that I can use.
Right, yeah. No, yeah, it sounds really fun. So have MIDI in, out?
Just MIDI in.
MIDI in only, okay.
Yeah, because everything you add to it adds to the cost, and I want to keep it pretty inexpensive. And it doesn't really need to do out. Now,
no, it doesn't really.
Because when it's doing the sequencer thing, it's sequencing itself. So it's not the sort of thing you would probably want to use to sequence anything else, because it's a bit. No.
Yeah, you're using the box for the sounds and running.
Yeah, think of it as sort of like one of those Roland sound module things that the keyboard guys like to bolt into racks.
And EMU made a crap load of them too back in the day as well. E-MU.
So I know how to do like MIDI out and MIDI through stuff, but for every single MIDI connection, you've got to add opto isolation to it, and those opto isolators are expensive.
Yeah. No, I'm totally. So it's MIDI in and stereo 1/4 inch outs.
Well, what I'm gonna do initially is have just a single mono out.
Okay.
Just like an instrument out. It'll actually probably be running at line level, but yeah. So just kind of like what you'd see on a really, really old, electric piano or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But on the board internally, I'm going to be leaving some spots on the PCB where you can tap into it and you can actually get discrete outputs from 6 different SID cogs. So
Nice.
if you want to play with getting a 4 discrete tracks out of the thing, you'll be able to do that. But you'll have to obviously, you'd want to get the kit and then put your own 4 quarter-inch outs on the back of your own custom box.
Right, yeah.
So, yeah, there's going to be some really cool stuff like that you can do with it if you're, of that mind. I'm going to make sure that I leave it completely open to be able to do that sort of thing. A SID chip only had 3 voices, and the emulation that I use, of course, only has 3, but the processor that I'm running it on internally has the ability to probably do somewhere between 4 and 6 emulations simultaneously, and the brain of the thing will be controlling all of them at once. So if you're in like polyphony mode, you can play 3 times 6 notes and press them all down at the same time, and they'll all make sound.
Yeah.
Right. So it won't be like an 80s synth where you can only play one noise at a time. And being able to tap into that into discrete outputs, when you get into chip tunes, you do fun stuff like use this voice for the drums and interleave them back and forth between the kick and the snare, right? And then, all sorts of other things, and the ability to tap into those outputs discreetly and record them into multi-track seems like a really good idea.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a movement of people who are not only obviously building and buying sort of retro type synths, but there's guys buying old 4-track cassette machines. I mean, I just bought one a few months ago. Like it's one of those things. So yeah, no, for sure, that's a cool idea. Originally, when you were telling this story, I was thinking that you were going to put out the proto synth book. That's what I was thinking that you were going to do, actually. Or
I'm sure some people would appreciate that too.
Or the proto synth DVD or something. Yeah. Although then, if you did a DVD, you would have to rebuild it from scratch, probably. Or they're all videos are up online though. Yeah.
I didn't do any build videos on the ProtoSynth, actually.
Okay.
I did a little bit of assembly on the video for it, but not in detail enough, talking about like how to cut wood and
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It explained, it gives you enough where you could probably figure out how to do it yourself with your own custom design, but yeah, it's when you start getting up to the point where you're writing your own key scanner to figure out which keys are pressed, that is above most people's head.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, if you're not given said software beforehand, it would. Yeah, it's throwing me. I follow what you're saying, but there's no way in heck that I would be able to do it, or at least not without some reasonable amount of computery knowledge. But yeah, this box sounds exciting. So how far are you as far as putting it together?
I'm working on bill of materials and building the first prototype on breadboards right now. So I got the display up and functioning, and I of course already have all of the sound production side of it already done from previous projects. So that's really complicated stuff, but it's already done. And the next thing I've got to do is start working on the. I already have the code together for the knob, that controls everything. The next thing is the MIDI part.
Yeah.
And I've got a MIDI in driver that's MIT licensed, so I can just go ahead and tap that.
There you go. Yeah.
And just run with it. So that's cool. So today I was working on designing the actual MIDI in circuit that does the opto isolator and all that, so that the processor can talk to, can hear the MIDI coming down the line, the serial stuff.
Right, yeah. 001 000.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, but Like I said, I already have a driver that I can use in the project for it. It's open source. And it's just a matter of tying that into my code. So it's basically at this point, I just need to put it all together on a breadboard and get it functioning, and then build a soldered up version and make sure it works all hardwired like that.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then I can drop the PCB design and send it off to our buddy Lane out there in Portland, who will make up as many PCBs as I want.
Yeah.
And then it becomes assembling one and making sure it doesn't explode.
Yeah, exactly. And giving it to people, sending out some beta test models to people to make them put it together to make sure everything works.
Yeah,
Kind of
you know,
too.
like guys who hang out in recording studios and stuff like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
You know?
Guys who needs to buy his own soldering gun. I was going to actually just point out the fact that I'm pretty much following everything that you're talking about. I just don't have the ability to always talk about it, but I follow all the stuff that you're saying and what the uses of all the. This is just more for anybody else in case they're wondering. I do have a clue about what you're talking about. I just don't know how to do it myself.
Yeah, and
Eventually,
that's the sort of idea here is that, I mean, a lot of people would love to have this thing as a little toy to play with, right? Not
Right.
that it's not that you couldn't do serious stuff with it. You can completely. I don't mean a toy in that sense. I mean a toy in like the yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly. Yeah, I
it's
need
kind
this damn thing.
kind of toy. I know a lot of people would like to have something like that. I know I sure would. And the problem is that the only way to get something like that is to build it yourself. And the number of things that you have to know to be able to do that is a very, very big, huge thing that I
Yeah.
don't think is really. It's so esoteric, you know. There's no reason for most people to want to learn half the stuff that you need to know to do it. So, hey,
Yeah.
give them a kit
The kit's
if they
done.
know how to solder,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if they don't, offer maybe one that's already soldered up too.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just a matter of putting it in a case or whatever. And if somebody really wants to, they can get an old Commodore 64, bastardize it, and put the chip in the case just
Whisker
for
does
cool
not
effect.
condone taking apart Commodore 64s.
Okay.
Don't do that.
I will, because I know there's a ridiculous amount of them kicking around half broken.
Well, if they're
But yeah,
completely unsalvageable, okay. But if they're at all, you know,
then just play the
functional,
damn.
do not take them apart. I will come to your house and beat you.
So speaking of old ass video games and stuff on
Well, one thing that I wanted
okay.
to cover, just to make sure I get it out there, if it goes over well and we sell some of these, what I'd like to do is a more expensive version that's in a rack mount case with like balanced out maybe.
Mhm.
Just something more appropriate for a studio setting, because I know that people would probably like that. Not nearly as many people, but the kind of people who do the stuff that we do,
Yeah.
would really like to have an actual box that mounts in, and yeah,
For me, it's not so much about the balanced as it is the rack mounting of it.
the rack mounting alone just puts it in a whole new ball game for me,
Yeah,
because I can
agreed.
hardwire it up to the studio and the computer and the recording and yeah.
It just makes everything a bit more nifty. When stuff doesn't completely fit correctly in the rack mount is when it cheeses me off. I have a few sort of half rack mount boxes, and they just never. That's besides the fact, but they never work properly. It drives me batty. Anyway, yeah, I'm super excited for this thing. Well, what you were mentioning too, obviously this is something that guys would buy and put together. But as you were mentioning too, I would just buy one of these darn things. It just would be a nifty thing to have in the studio. Like, check this ridiculously interesting box out. However, that being said, I would probably purchase it just to push my bad soldering a little bit further. I did actually, side note, I got a multimeter just lately, but it's not a digital one. I have an actual analog multimeter
Huh,
that
where'd
I
you find
found.
that?
It was in the basement of the studio, just sitting there with it's got a VU on it with a whole bunch of switches and stuff. So Might actually. Well, I haven't brought it home yet, but I think I
Does it
might
have a
give it a
brand
go.
on it?
It does, but I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. So I'll put it in the show notes or take a picture or something.
Yeah,
But yeah,
if it's
it'll.
if it says Fluke on it, yeah, it's worth money.
Is it? Okay, cool. Good to know. Okay, yeah, because it was just actually it was we have a microphone cabinet that just has basically the leftovers of broken microphones and things from over the years. We were used to put all the microphones in there, but it was just a pain in the butt to take them out all the time and stuff. And it was actually just sitting in there under a pile of other sort of various things. So, yeah, I was like, okay, well, here, there's one less thing I need to go and get. So I need to go and just chase down a soldering iron in the next little while. It's trying to find a friggin' shop, hobby shop in Winnipeg is easier said than done. I know you can order these parts and stuff online, but it would be nice to be able to walk into a place and actually talk to a human being for my first time out, you know?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. It's not that easy. I know there is a place in Winnipeg. It's just a matter of going down and talking to the guys.
Yeah,
But anyway,
there's nowhere here, which is kind of why we started the hackerspace, so that there is a place locally where people can come and do things like that. Actually, in a couple weeks here, we're going to be hosting a big Learn to Solder event at our hackerspace here at the studio, and there's going to be a bunch of people showing up, and the old graybeards are going to show everybody how to solder up all their little project circuits. It should be a good little service to the community.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun thing to do. Did you guys ever end up with the music in the hackerspace yet? Remember we were having that discussion?
Not yet. Not yet.
No? Okay, cool. Awesome. How are we doing on time?
We are out of time.
I thought so. Oh, well, it's all good. So, whenever the project gets, obviously we'll discuss it when it gets done and stuff like that. But I'm excited, and I have to go check out that site right away. Cool.
Yeah. I'll post updates on this one as I have interesting stuff. I'm probably going to be quiet about it for a little bit. And as you guys know, this show is pre-recorded, so what we're talking about some in the past, right? So it's farther along when you guys hear it than when we were talking about it. So make sure to check out the YouTube channel and stuff just to see if I've put up anything else if you're really super interested. Or like I said before on the IRC, we like to talk about this kind of stuff in there quite a bit. And the design process is very organic and back and forth with a lot of people. So
I was going to mention too, the easiest way to get on the IRC chat is just to go to tymkrs.com.
Yeah, tymkrs.com/chat will get you there directly. You don't need any software or anything. Just type in a nickname. You're good.
Yeah.
We try to make it real easy. Anyway, we actually are out of time, so
cool.
We're going to have to get out of here. You guys can find this show every Friday at patchbay.tv. There's an RSS feed link on the page if you want to have it automatically downloaded to your phone, iTunes, whatever you like to listen to your podcasts on. There's also a player right there on the page. Just click play. That's it for us. We'll see you guys next week.